The Aldarian ship was huge. It floated in space like a giant silver leaf, making the HMS Endeavour look small in comparison. Captain Eleanor Thompson tried to hide her surprise as she stared at the main screen. "Their ship is at least 3 times our size," Commander Oliver Pembroke whispered, saying what everyone was thinking. The bridge crew watched as 3 smaller ships came out from the main Aldarian vessel. They moved smoothly through space, their hulls shimmering with a strange pearly light. "They're sending an escort," Lieutenant James Blackwood said, his hands hovering over his console. 3 ships approaching slowly. He paused, checking his readings. "No weapons seem to be active, Captain." Eleanor nodded. "Dr. Barrett, Dr. Ashworth, are you ready for the meeting?" William Barrett adjusted his glasses nervously. "Yes, Captain. We've prepared the translation devices and studied all their messages. We should be able to communicate fairly well." Margaret Ashworth looked more confident. "Their language follows some basic patterns we've seen in human languages. The universal translator should work fine." The radio crackled with a new message. The voice that came through was smooth and musical, speaking perfect English. "HMS Endeavour, we welcome you. Please follow our escort ships to the docking area." Eleanor took a deep breath. "Acknowledge their message. Commander Pembroke, follow the escort ships in." As they got closer to the main ship, they could see more details. The surface wasn't just silver. It had patterns that seemed to move and change, like ripples on water. The docking bay opened like a flower blooming in space. "It's beautiful," Dr. Barrett said, recording everything on his tablet. "Their technology must be incredible." Lieutenant Blackwood wasn't so impressed. "Beauty can hide danger," he said quietly. "Those patterns on their hull, they could be some kind of defense system." The docking went smoothly. The Endeavour's crew felt small vibrations as the ships connected. Eleanor chose her team carefully. Herself, Dr. Barrett, Dr. Ashworth, Lieutenant Blackwood, and 2 security officers. "Commander Pembroke, you have the bridge," Eleanor said. "Keep the ship ready, just in case." The Aldarians were waiting at the airlock. They were tall, just as Dr. Barrett had said, with silvery skin that seemed to glow slightly. They wore flowing robes that changed color as they moved. The tallest Aldarian stepped forward and bowed. "I am First Speaker Theron. Welcome to the Celestial Harmony." Its voice was just as musical in person as it had been over the radio. Dr. Ashworth's translator confirmed that everything was working perfectly. The humans bowed in return, and Eleanor spoke clearly. "I am Captain Eleanor Thompson of the HMS Endeavour. We bring greetings from Earth." The meeting room was large and bright, with walls that seemed to be made of flowing light. The Aldarians offered them seats at a table that appeared to float in the air. As they talked, Dr. Barrett could hardly contain his excitement. The Aldarians spoke of amazing technologies, ways to control gravity, heal any disease, and travel faster than humans had ever dreamed possible. But Lieutenant Blackwood noticed things that others missed. The way the Aldarians never showed them the way back to the airlock. How there were always more Aldarians in the room than humans. How their questions about Earth seemed too specific, too focused on defenses and resources. "And your colonies on Mars?" First Speaker Theron asked. "They are well protected." Eleanor answered carefully. "They are adequate for our needs." Dr. Ashworth was taking notes when she noticed something odd. Some of the Aldarian words didn't match their earlier messages. The differences were small, but important. She caught Lieutenant Blackwood's eye and gave a tiny nod. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When they returned to the Endeavour, everyone seemed pleased, except Lieutenant Blackwood and Dr. Ashworth. "Captain," Dr. Ashworth said once they were safely back on their ship, "we need to talk. Something isn't right about their language patterns." Eleanor looked at her chief linguist's serious face and felt a chill. The mission of peace was about to become much more complicated. "Meeting in my ready room," she ordered. "Now." Dr. Margaret Ashworth's hands shook as she showed her findings on the ready room's main screen. Captain Eleanor Thompson, Lieutenant Blackwood, and Dr. Barrett watched with growing concern. "Look at these words," Margaret pointed to her translation notes. In their first messages to Earth, they used this word for peace. But in our meeting, they used a slightly different word. At first, I thought it was just a formal version. She took a deep breath before continuing. "It's not. The word they're using doesn't mean peace at all. It's closer to submission or surrender." The room fell silent. Eleanor felt her stomach tighten. "Are you absolutely sure?" "Yes, Captain. And there's more." Margaret pulled up more data. Their questions about our colonies, our defenses. They weren't asking about our protection. They were asking about our weaknesses. Lieutenant Blackwood stood up, his face grim. "I knew something wasn't right. Captain, while they were showing us their ship, I noticed their crew was all wearing military insignias. Every single one of them. No civilians, no scientists, just military personnel." Commander Pembroke's voice came through the ship's comm system. "Captain, you need to see this. We've detected massive energy readings from the far side of the Eldarian ship. They're powering up something big." "On my way," Eleanor replied. She turned to her team. "Dr. Barrett, what did you learn about their technology while we were there?" William Barrett looked pale but focused. "Their ship isn't just advanced, it's built for war. Those beautiful patterns we saw, their weapon ports, hundreds of them, hidden under that shifting surface. I recorded everything I could with my tablet sensors." They rushed to the bridge. The main screen showed the Eldarian ship's energy readings climbing higher and higher. "They're trying to be subtle about it," Oliver explained. "But our sensors detect power building up in their weapon systems. And Captain, 3 more of their ships just appeared behind the moon. They're trying to surround us." Eleanor's mind raced. They had to warn Earth, but they were deep in space, surrounded by enemy ships that were far more powerful than the Endeavour. "Dr. Ashworth," Eleanor called, "send a message to the Eldarians. Tell them we're having some technical problems and need to move away for repairs." Margaret typed quickly, but the response came back almost instantly. First Speaker Theron's voice filled the bridge, no longer musical but cold and hard. "That would not be wise, Captain Thompson. Your ship will remain where it is. Prepare to be boarded. Your crew will provide us with detailed information about Earth's defenses." "They're not even trying to hide it anymore," James Blackwood said, checking his security screens. "Multiple ships moving into attack positions." Eleanor stood up from her captain's chair. Her voice was steadied despite her racing heart. "Send an emergency signal to Earth. Maximum encryption. Tell them everything we've learned." "They're blocking our communications," Oliver reported. "Standard channels are all jammed." Dr. Barrett looked up from his station. "Captain, I might have a solution. Their jamming technology is focused on our main communication systems, but we still have the small research shuttle. Its signals might be too weak for them to notice." Eleanor nodded quickly. "Dr. Barrett, Dr. Ashworth, prepare all our data about the Eldarians. You too will take the shuttle. Lieutenant Blackwood, create a distraction. Make it look like we're having engine troubles." "What about the rest of us?" Oliver asked. "We're going to give them exactly what they expect. A human ship trying to run away in panic." Eleanor's eyes were hard with determination. "But we're going to show them that cornered humans are very, very dangerous." As her crew rushed to their positions, Eleanor thought about Earth, about all the people who didn't know they were in danger. The Eldarians thought humans would be easy to conquer. They thought humanity would surrender without a fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Engineering reports ready, Captain," Commander Oliver Pembroke announced. "They've set up the engine fault just like you asked." Captain Eleanor Thompson nodded, her face lit by the red emergency lights they'd activated across the ship. "Dr. Barrett, Dr. Ashworth, are you ready?" The 2 scientists stood by the door to the bridge, carrying small bags with their research data and personal tablets. "Ready, Captain," William Barrett answered, trying to sound braver than he felt. Remember, Eleanor said firmly, your mission is to get back to Earth. No heroics, no delays. The data you carry could save millions of lives. Lieutenant James Blackwood handed them each a small device. Emergency beacons. If you get into trouble, press the button. We'll come for you if we can. Margaret Ashworth took her beacon with shaking hands. What about the rest of you? The Endeavour can't fight those ships alone. We're not planning to fight them. Eleanor smiled grimly. We're planning to annoy them. Humans are very good at being annoying. The ship's lights flickered, and steam began venting from several external ports. To anyone watching, it would look like the Endeavour was having serious technical problems. Aldarian vessel is hailing us, Oliver reported. Put them on screen, Eleanor ordered, sitting in her captain's chair. First Speaker Theron's face appeared, looking both angry and satisfied. Captain Thompson, your ship appears to be malfunctioning. Allow us to send repair teams to assist you. Eleanor made her voice sound worried and slightly panicked. No thank you. We have radiation leaks in several sections. It wouldn't be safe for your people. Just give us a few hours to fix the problems. While she kept the Aldarians distracted, William and Margaret slipped away to the shuttle bay. The small research vessel waited for them, powered down and looking harmless. Life support active, William whispered as they strapped themselves in. Power systems at minimum. Margaret started inputting coordinates into the navigation computer. Course set for the dark side of the moon. We can use it for cover. Back on the bridge, Eleanor watched on a small screen as the shuttle prepared to launch. Lieutenant Blackwood, time to create our distraction. James pressed several buttons on his console. Suddenly, the Endeavour's engines flared brightly, sending out waves of electromagnetic interference. At the same time, warning signals began broadcasting on all frequencies. Danger, breach, imminent. The warning blared in every human and alien language they knew. All vessels maintain safe distance. The Aldarian ships quickly backed away from the Endeavour. In the confusion, a tiny shuttle slipped out of the launch bay, running dark and quiet. They're clear, Oliver reported softly. No signs of detection. Eleanor allowed herself a small smile before returning to her act. First Speaker Theron, please keep your ships back. We're doing everything we can to contain the radiation. The Aldarian leader looked suspicious. Your ship's readings are very unusual, Captain Thompson. Perhaps we should. Warning alarms cut him off as the Endeavour released another burst of electromagnetic interference, making the communication screen fill with static. In the shuttle, William and Margaret watched their sensors carefully. No pursuit, William said quietly. They're all focused on the Endeavour. Margaret looked back at the larger ship, growing smaller behind them. Do you think they'll be all right? They have to be, William replied. We have to focus on our mission. Earth needs to know what's coming. The shuttle's engines hummed softly as they accelerated away from the Aldarian ships, keeping the moon between them and the enemy. They carry humanity's only warning of the coming war, while behind them, the crew of the Endeavour prepared to face whatever the Aldarians had planned. Eleanor watched the shuttle disappear from her sensors and whispered, "Good luck, my friends. Now let's show these aliens how much trouble a single human ship can cause when it really tries." The first attack came at Earth's colony on Mars. 3 Aldarian ships appeared suddenly above the main dome of New Armstrong City. Their silver hulls gleamed in the red sunlight of the Martian morning. Inside the colony's control room, Robert Phillips stared at his sensor screens in disbelief. Then he remembered Lieutenant Blackwood's emergency protocols, the ones everyone had laughed at during training. "This is not a drill," Robert announced over the colony speakers. "All civilians to the underground shelters. Security teams to your stations. Activate Defense Protocol Alpha 7 immediately." The Aldarians expected an easy victory. They didn't know that humans had been preparing for alien attacks ever since they first started watching science fiction movies. Every colony had hidden defenses, built into the very rocks of Mars. When the first Aldarian ship fired, its energy beam hit an empty dome. The real colony was safely buried underground, and it was fighting back. "Launch the mirror drones," Robert ordered. Hundreds of small, reflective drones rose from hidden silos around the colony. They formed a complex pattern in the air, looking like nothing more than debris or scanner interference. But when the next Aldarian energy beam fired, the drones moved with perfect coordination. They caught the beam and reflected it right back at the ship that fired it. On the HMS Endeavour, Captain Eleanor Thompson watched her ship's emergency broadcast reach the Mars colony. Her plan had worked. While pretending to have engine trouble, they had managed to send warnings to every human settlement. "The Aldarians are pulling back from Mars," Commander Oliver Pembroke reported with a smile. "They lost one ship to their own weapons. The other two are damaged." Lieutenant Blackwood nodded with satisfaction. Mirror defense worked perfectly. Simple physics use their own energy against them. Sometimes old tricks are the best tricks. But Eleanor knew this was just the beginning. Status of the Earth fleet. "Ships launching from every space dock," Oliver replied. "They're following the emergency protocols. Small ships, moving fast, hard to hit, just like we planned." The Aldarians had expected to find primitive humans with simple defenses. Instead, they found a species that had spent centuries imagining and preparing for this exact situation. Every science fiction story, every space movie, every alien invasion book had taught humans valuable lessons. Back on Mars, the colony's mining machines were being quickly converted into weapon platforms. Drilling lasers became defense cannons. Mining robots were turned into ground combat units. "They thought we would panic," Robert told his team as they worked. "They thought we would surrender. They don't understand humans at all." On the Endeavour, Eleanor watched more Aldarian ships arrive. But now she was smiling. During their engine troubles, her crew had mapped every weakness in the Aldarian ship designs. "Their shield technology is amazing," Lieutenant Blackwood reported, "but it has one big problem. It only works against high-tech weapons." They never thought anyone would try something as simple as throwing rocks. "Launch the mining debris," Eleanor ordered. "Let's see how their fancy shields handle a few thousand chunks of space rock." The Endeavour had been collecting space debris while pretending to be damaged. Now it released clouds of jagged rocks and mining waste, all aimed at the Aldarian ship's most sensitive areas. Across the solar system, humanity was responding to the attack. Ships that looked like simple cargo vessels revealed hidden weapons. Space stations that appeared to be science outposts became defense platforms. "Message from Earth Command," Oliver announced. "All colonies report ready for defense. The production facilities on the moon are switching to war production." And he smiled broadly. "Dr. Barrett and Dr. Ashworth have arrived safely with their data. Earth knows everything about our enemy." Eleanor stood on her bridge, watching the Aldarian ships try to deal with humanity's unexpectedly fierce resistance. "Send a message to all human ships," she ordered. "Tell them, remember our history. Remember all our stories. We've been preparing for this day for centuries. Now let's show them why you should never underestimate humans." 2 weeks into the war, Earth's leaders gathered in a deep underground bunker in Switzerland. On the main screen, Captain Eleanor Thompson explained her plan while her ship, the HMS Endeavour, continued its hit-and-run attacks against Aldarian forces. "The Aldarians think in straight lines," Eleanor explained. "They attack in perfect formations. Their tactics are all based on superior technology. But that's their weakness. They don't know how to handle enemies who don't fight the way they expect." Dr. William Barrett, now safely back on Earth, stepped forward to show his findings. "Their ships are amazing, but they have 3 weak points." He pointed to his diagrams. "Their sensors can't handle random patterns. Their shields don't work well against simple physical objects. And most importantly, they never expect attacks from behind. So what do you suggest?" asked General Michael Roberts, head of Earth's Defense Forces. Lieutenant Blackwood's voice came through the communication link from the Endeavour. We fight dirty. We fight weird. We do everything they don't expect. The plan was simple but clever. Earth's ships would split into 3 groups. The first group would act as decoys, pretending to be easy targets. The second group would hide behind space debris and asteroids. The third group would come in from unexpected directions. Like a boxer, Commander Oliver Pembroke explained. Distract them with your left hand while your right hand delivers the real punch. The plan worked better than anyone expected. When Aldarian ships chased the decoy groups, they flew right into traps. Human ships would jump out from behind asteroids, throwing clouds of metal debris into the Aldarians' sensitive sensor arrays. Dr. Margaret Ashworth had made another important discovery about the Aldarians. They hate looking foolish, she explained. When our tactics make them look silly, they get angry. Angry enemies make mistakes. Earth's engineers worked day and night, turning normal space junk into weapons. Old satellites became bombs. Broken spacecraft parts became missiles. Even garbage from the space stations was turned into dangerous clouds of debris that could damage Aldarian ships. On the Moon, factories that once made scientific equipment now produced hundreds of small, fast ships. These ships were simple but hard to hit. They flew in random patterns that confused Aldarian targeting systems. They keep trying to hit us with their fancy energy weapons, Robert Phillips reported from Mars Colony. But we just keep moving in ways their computers can't predict. It's like trying to swat a fly with a sledgehammer. Eleanor watched from the Endeavour as another group of Aldarian ships fell into a human trap. This time, the humans had hidden ships inside a hollowed-out asteroid. When the Aldarians passed by, the asteroid broke apart, and Earth ships attacked from all directions. Message from the Aldarian command ship, Oliver announced. They're demanding we fight properly and stop using primitive tactics. Eleanor smiled. Tell them we'll start fighting properly when they start negotiating properly. Until then, we'll keep doing what works. Around the solar system, humanity's resistance grew stronger. The Jupiter mining stations used their huge electromagnets to throw moon rocks at Aldarian ships. The Venus research base turned its heat shields into weapons, reflecting the sun's energy at enemy vessels. Every human victory made the Aldarians more frustrated. They had expected an easy conquest against a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow the normal rules of space warfare. The Aldarians have lost 12 more ships, Lieutenant Blackwood reported. They still don't understand why they're losing. They keep searching for advanced technology, but they can't find any. That's because our real advanced technology, Eleanor said proudly, is the human ability to think creatively and adapt quickly. And that's something their sensors can never detect. The war was far from over, but humanity had found its strength. Against the rigid, predictable tactics of the Aldarians, human unpredictability and resourcefulness were proving to be powerful weapons. Dr. William Barrett couldn't believe what he was seeing under his microscope. He had been studying a piece of damaged Aldarian ship hull for weeks, and finally he found something amazing. Dr. Ashworth, he called excitedly. Come look at this. Their ship's metal. It's alive. Margaret Ashworth hurried over to his laboratory in the underground research facility. Through the microscope, she could see tiny structures moving within the metal, almost like living cells. Their ships aren't just built, William explained, his voice shaking with excitement. They're grown. And look what happens when I add this. He dropped a small amount of ordinary salt water onto the sample. The metal cells immediately stopped moving. Some of them even started to break down. Get Captain Thompson on the line, Margaret said quickly. She needs to see this. On the main screen of the HMS Endeavour, Eleanor Thompson watched William's discovery with growing interest. After months of fighting, this could be the breakthrough they needed. Their entire technology is based on living metal, William explained. It's brilliant, but it has one big weakness. It can't handle salt water. Even a small amount disrupts their systems. Lieutenant James Blackwood laughed from his security station. All those fancy weapons, and they can be stopped by something as simple as seawater. Eleanor's mind was already working on a plan. Oliver, she called to Commander Pembroke. How many water tanks do we have in storage? 8 large ones, Oliver replied. They're supposed to be for emergencies. Good. Tell engineering to rig them with explosive charges. We're going to make some space water balloons. The next Alderian attack came 3 days later. A fleet of their ships approached Earth, probably hoping to end the war with one big battle. They didn't expect Earth's newest weapon. All ships, execute Operation Rainstorm, Eleanor commanded. Hundreds of human ships launched what looked like normal missiles. The Alderian shields easily stopped them, but that was the plan. When the missiles exploded, they released clouds of salt water into space. The water quickly froze in the cold of space, creating clouds of ice crystals. As the Alderian ships flew through these clouds, their living metal hulls began to malfunction. It's working, Oliver reported excitedly. Their ships are slowing down. Shield strength dropping. Around Earth, more human ships appeared from hiding places. They had been waiting for this moment, carrying more water tanks modified into weapons. Soon, space around Earth was filled with frozen water crystals, making it dangerous for any Alderian ship to come close. Dr. Barrett made another discovery while studying the captured Alderian technology. Their computer systems are all connected. He told Eleanor over the communication link. They share information instantly, but that means they also share weaknesses. Margaret added, they're like a hive mind. Very efficient when everything works, but if one part fails, they all feel it. The Alderians tried to push through Earth's defensive line, but their ships kept having problems. The salt water was freezing their systems, making their living metal sluggish and unresponsive. They're not used to their technology failing, Eleanor observed. They don't know how to adapt when their fancy systems don't work. Robert Phillips sent a message from Mars Colony. We're mixing salt water with our regular mining explosives. The Alderians don't even try to fight back anymore when they see our ships coming. The Endeavour led another attack, this time targeting the Alderian flagship. They didn't use any advanced weapons, just simple containers of salt water and old-fashioned rockets. Look at them retreat, James said with satisfaction. All that superior technology, and they're running from frozen water. Eleanor watched the Alderian ships falling back. Send a message to Earth Command, she ordered. Tell them we found the enemy's weakness. The tide of war has turned. Around the solar system, human forces began using their new weapon. Alderian ships everywhere started retreating, unable to handle this simple but effective attack. Humanity had found a way to defeat an enemy that was supposed to be unbeatable. The final battle for Earth began at dawn. The Alderians had gathered every ship they had left for one last attack. Their fleet filled the sky above Earth like a cloud of silver leaves. Captain Eleanor Thompson stood on the bridge of the HMS Endeavour, looking at the massive enemy fleet. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Behind her ship was the largest gathering of human vessels ever seen. All ships report ready, Commander Oliver Pembroke announced. Every colony has sent their forces. Even the mining ships from the asteroid belt are here. The Alderians are sending a message. Lieutenant James Blackwood reported. They're offering us one last chance to surrender. Eleanor smiled. Send them our reply. Humans don't surrender. But we're still willing to discuss peace, real peace this time. The Alderian response came quickly. Their weapons powered up, making their ships glow with energy. They're forming a perfect attack pattern, James observed, still using the same old tactics. Then let's show them our new ones, Eleanor said. Begin Operation Unity. The human fleet split into hundreds of smaller groups. Mining ships carry huge nets full of salt water ice. Research vessels released clouds of reflective particles. Military ships moved in random patterns that confused Alderian targeting systems. Dr. William Barrett and Dr. Margaret Ashworth watched from Earth's Defense Command Center. They had helped design this final battle plan, using everything they had learned about Alderian technology. "Look at their ships," William pointed to the screen. "They're trying to stay in formation even though it's not working. They can't adapt to new situations." Margaret nodded. "They depend too much on their technology. When it doesn't work perfectly, they don't know what to do." The battle began. Alderian energy beams fired in perfect lines, but human ships were never where they were supposed to be. Every time the Alderians tried to target a human vessel, they found only clouds of ice crystals and reflective debris. "Now," Eleanor commanded, "release the water bombs." Thousands of water containers exploded in space, creating a massive cloud of frozen crystals. The Alderian ships found themselves surrounded by particles that were killing their living metal hulls. "Their shields are failing," Oliver reported. "Their formations are breaking up." On Mars, Robert Phillips led a fleet of converted mining ships. They used their electromagnetic mining equipment to push huge clouds of saltwater ice toward the enemy. "The Alderians are trying to retreat," James announced. "But they're surrounded. Our teams from the outer colonies are behind them." The Endeavour moved forward, leading Earth's main fleet. They had trained for months for this moment. Every ship knew its part in the plan. "Send the final message," Eleanor ordered. All across space, human ships broadcast the same words. "You came to our home as false friends. You tried to destroy us. But humans are stronger than you knew. We don't need perfect technology. We have something better: creativity, adaptability, and unity." The Alderian fleet was in chaos. Their perfect formations had fallen apart. Their advanced weapons couldn't target the simple tricks humans were using. Their living metal ships were failing as more and more salt water froze on their hulls. First Speaker Theron's voice came over the communication system, but this time it wasn't musical or commanding. It was desperate. "How? How can you defeat us with such primitive methods?" Eleanor replied calmly, "Because we never forgot how to think for ourselves. We never became dependent on perfect technology. That's humanity's greatest strength." The battle ended not with a grand explosion, but with a simple message from the Alderian fleet: "We surrender." As human ships began securing the Alderian vessels, Eleanor looked at her crew. "Send a message to Earth Command," she said. "Tell them, the war is over. Humanity stood together, fought together, and won together. Now let's show the Alderians how humans make real peace." Across the solar system, people celebrated. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and proved that unity, creativity, and determination could overcome any obstacle, even an enemy with superior technology.